Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Great to see you here. Thank you, Kath. Thank you, John. We started organising this event a wee while ago, and I'm so happy that it's come to fruition. I would like to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people of Canberra on the lands that we're now on, and also pay respects to them, but also my Indigenous people from Bullwinkel region, which is east of Perth, which are the Balladong people and the Whadjuk people. And I also acknowledge the Aboriginal people in this room and the great work that you're doing. Thank you. So I'm the newly elected representative for this new seat of Bullwinkel. So I'm the first member of this seat, and I'm so proud that I'm a nurse and midwife myself. And of course it's named after Vivian Bullwinkel, whose photo is here. Can I just have a show of hands? Who's heard of Vivian Bullwinkel? Oh, that warms my heart. That's great. I often go to places and I ask this question and only a few hands go up. For those that don't know, I would encourage you to find out why the seat, the 18th seat in Australia that's named after a woman is named after legendary Vivian Bullwinkel. As most of you know, she was a World War II nursing hero who survived a terrible massacre where 21 nurses were murdered, and she kept their story alive for the rest of her life. And she went and testified at the War Crimes Tribunal in Japan against the Japanese. But her bravery and resilience didn't stop there, it really just started. She was a prisoner of war for 3 years. She did incredible things for the profession of nursing. She helped get nursing from hospital-based training, where we were kind of slave labour. Is there any hospital-based trained nurses here? Do you agree? We were slave labour, but she helped transform it as the president of the College of Nursing, and to get it to the profession that it is today, a very well trusted profession. And so she directly impacted my life. I've done both hospital-based training and tertiary-based training. And in fact, on the weekend, I just handed in my PhD revisions. So fingers crossed. I'll get through that other hurdle. My time as a nurse has been mostly as trained at a hospital-based nurse and midwife, and in St John of God Hospital in Subiaco. And I worked mostly as a remote area nurse in the Indigenous communities, mine sites and oil rigs, and very remote areas in the Pilbara and the Kimberley of Western Australia. So it was there where I really saw the impact of the social determinants of health. And I'm sure you all know about that. I'm speaking to a room full of nurses. But really, this is the key to addressing the health disparities in our nation. And I spoke about this in my first speech, and that's something that I work every day to keep front of mind, because I've seen it and I've lived it. And when people don't have access to fresh food and vegetables, when they don't have housing, when they don't have employment, when they don't have social connection and cultural connection, these things affect our societal health and our individual health. When I was reflecting on this speech, I thought of the growth, and I know that what you're asking for nurses to achieve their scope of, fully achieve their scope of practice and work within their scope of practice is something that I've seen happen. So I want to be optimistic too, Helen. We have moved on greatly from when I started nursing, and I'll just tell you this little story that I remember when I was a student nurse in a hospital, and there was a doctor about to put in an IV, and all the student nurses were gathered in, and the registered nurses, and we were very excited, and we all gathered around that bedside, and he was called in, and he wore a bow tie, as doctors did in those days. And you know, he inserted the IV, and I kind of remember thinking, oh, is that it? Like, it was a really big thing, and some of us missed out on morning tea because we wanted to see this procedure. And then 10 years later, I mean, I was putting in IVs on the side of the road for people that had been in car accidents in remote areas. And then 40 years on, nurses are putting in IVs in people's homes and delivering chemotherapy and immunotherapy. So it's always good to remember we have come a long way, even in my short time in the career. I like to think of it as short, it's gone very quickly. But there's more to do. And as Helen said, you know, of the 410,000 nurses that we have here, imagine if we were all working to our full scope of our practice, how much we could achieve together. I would just like to mention a few things that the Labor government and the Albanese Labor government have done for nurses, just to remind you that we are making progress. And I'd like to start with where my sister started, the Associate Professor, Lorna Cook now, you know, at fee-free TAFE for enrolled nurses. This is often a great way for nurses to start their career, where they can start getting some income and then go on and further their studies. So we're doing a fee-free TAFE for enrolled nurses. We're doing paid prac for uni students. This is a recent thing that's come about. And we do remember that most nurses are still women, and I see that in front of me now. Most nurses are still women and often have little children to care for, or other part-time jobs that they may have to sacrifice to do their blocks of training throughout their university prac. We've increased the wage increases for aged care nurses, which I'm particularly happy about, and also made it legislation that aged care facilities have to have a registered nurse in them, and I think we're at 99% of that, so that's great progression. We've expanded prescribing rights, and I agree with you, Anne. I hope we go further with that because we want all nurses to be working at their full scope. We're developing the National Workforce Strategy. We're increasing scholarships and postgraduate scholarships, of which I was a beneficiary, as both of you probably were before. We're doing university study hubs where people from the country in rural areas can stay in rural areas and get support for their university studies where their home is, and hopefully that they can return to their home and stay in their communities to work. And of course, we've set up a lot of urgent care clinics, 137 urgent care clinics around the country to take pressure off emergency hospitals, the emergency departments of hospitals, of which nurses are frontline, of course. And the Medicare 1800, which is a nurse-led initiative to provide support. And I do want to acknowledge that I can see Assistant Minister Rebecca White, Assistant Minister for Health. Rebecca, can you just point yourself out so everyone knows this is Rebecca? You might want to tell Rebecca what your ask is. And we also have the President of the Senate, Senator Sue Lyons, is here today in the front row. And I did see Dr. Mike Freelander, and I'm sure some of the other, right here in front, and I'm sure a lot of my colleagues will come up during the day. But please don't hesitate in telling them what the nurses do. Everyone knows a nurse, but they still often think hospital nurses. And we know that hospital nurses, according to my stats, Helen, they're only 40% are hospital nurses. So please share with them your stories and what you've done and the changes that you've seen and have seen and the changes that you want to see. Because nurses are the solution. There's a lot more to be done. Thank you.